Well, hello there, and welcome to this webinar on Amazon Lightsail storage. My name is Darko, and today we're gonna be having some fun with Amazon Lightsail, right? Before I start with anything too serious, let me actually go through the webinar agenda. We're gonna be talking about what is Amazon Lightsail and why should you care about it. We're going to talk about some of the storage options on top of Amazon Lightsail, and we're going to be showing how one of those solutions can work for you. All right, without further ado, let's kick it off. Amazon Lightsail. This is a very neat service, I must say. And let me actually start with a story. I have a friend, and I'm sure you know people like this. You've been working with, maybe this is you as well. AWS is amazing, right? There's a lot of things that you can do on top of AWS, right? It's very difficult to understand, to think about a service, a solution, a workload, a thing you want to run that you can't do on top of AWS. However, it is complicated, right? It 200 plus services, many different ways of doing the same thing. It can just get overwhelming sometimes, especially for people who just want to run things. I have a friend and he runs a company that does websites, right? They create websites, they create web applications. And when him and I were talking about AWS, he initially starts with like, that is just too complicated for me. I cannot grasp the concepts of all the things on AWS to run a simple website, to run a simple web application, a mobile application, even a testing workload. Well, this is where things like Amazon Lightsail come into question. They can solve mine and my friend's problem. How? Well, what is Lightsail? What is Amazon Lightsail? Think of it as a VPS or a virtual private server. Of course, it's much more than just that, but that's how people first perceive it, right? It is a very simple way to get started with your services on AWS, right? It has low pricing. It is basically a one-click solution to launch something that you want. It's managed, and it is actually built on top of like the brunt and the breadth and the strength of what is Amazon Web Services, right? So what do you use Amazon Lightsail for? There's a bunch of use cases for Amazon Lightsail. There's actually different services as part of Amazon Lightsail, but it basically gives you the ability to launch a thing within minutes, right? Because it uses the brunt of AWS, the power of AWS underneath, it can actually grow, scale as your usage grows. And on top of that, it's all managed for you because we want you to focus on your code, on the thing that makes your application important, not the infrastructure, right? So this is kind of one of the ways people use Lightsail, right? And I'll get into the details later on a bit, but it is very simple, and I'll show it to you actually how certain things on Amazon Lightsail are easy to do. One of the things we hear is that a great thing about Amazon Lightsail is it predictable pricing. AWS can be cryptic when it comes to costs, right? There's company, there's partners, there's people out there who build their sole capacity on managing your AWS costs. When it comes to Lightsail, it's pretty straightforward. You want this very small Lightsail server, this instance, $3.50 a month. That's it. That's how much it costs. That's what you get for it. You get your half gig of RAM, you get a single vCPU, you get 20 gigabytes of SSD, and 1 terabyte of transfer. And it costs $3.50 a month. Wonderful. It is very easy to understand how much things will cost. So this is one great benefit because it helps you plan. One-click blueprints. This is by far one of the greatest things about this. A few years ago, I've actually helped friends set up web servers on top of AWS and some other hosting platforms. It usually involved me in provisioning my own Debian server, and going in there and then installing PHP, installing Nginx, maybe doing some FPM and a whole bunch of other different tools, which I need to, well, it takes me a day or so to configure it properly by hand. But you shouldn't do things by hand because you can basically select, hey, do you want WordPress? Well, bam, select WordPress, click launch, and all of a sudden, just like that, you have a WordPress server running on top of AWS. And any of these blueprints already exist here, so your GitLabs, your Joomlas, your Magentos. If you want to run Windows, you can just run your Windows server on top of an Lightsail instance, just like that. Pretty simple, pretty approachable, and that's what's important here, right? It needs to get you up and running really, really fast. But is this it? Is this all Lightsail is? Getting that tea back. No, there's a lot more to Lightsail, and Lightsail isn't just a virtual platform, isn't just a VPS. It's not a virtual private server. It also has a lot more things. But all of these things are actual, a lot more things. That's not a word. It has plenty of new additional features and services on top of Lightsail, which run in the same mindset. They want to make this simple, easy, one-click, and fully managed. So if you want to run a database, you can run a database on Lightsail. If you want to manage your content in a content delivery network, CloudFront, it is super easy to do it with Lightsail. Sending out load balancers behind multiple EC2 instances, behind multiple Lightsail instances. Absolutely. You want to manage domains? You can do that through Lightsail. And also, you can do some containers. And you can also do storage, but we're going to talk about storage today. This is what else Amazon Lightsail can do. But if you're thinking to yourself, hey, Darko, listen, this is all great, right? I want the simplicity of this, but my business will grow. I don't think Lightsail will be able to accommodate my needs. Well, actually, you can use Lightsail to interact with other AWS services, right? You have your VPC peering, you have your IAM user groups, you can access some other AWS services out there. But the best of all, your Lightsail instances can be upgraded to actual EC2 instances. So if you have decided that okay, you know what? I'm done with Lightsail for this workload. I want to take it to the next level. I want this thing to be on an EC2 instance. Instead of manually copying things over and doing the configuration all over again by hand, you can basically just migrate your Lightsail instance into EC2. Wonderful. And popular things that people run, I mentioned before, your web apps, your websites, your mobile applications. People run simple dev and testing environments because it takes so little time to launch a simple dev environment, just a single server out there to do things. Once you're done with it, scrape it. That's it, right? And because it is a server running on there, there's databases, there are load balancers, there's domains, there's storage. You can also run your business software. You can run production grade applications. So wonderful. All right. Time to get into the actual meat and potatoes of this entire presentation. But before we get into that, you may be wondering, who is this bald person and why is he screaming at the camera? Hey, that's me. Yes, who's that? Well, my name is Darko. And I've been a developer, well, not a developer, I've been an engineer. I've been a thing that used to call a system administrator for a long time. I used to manage servers, the exact same you can launch on Lightsail. I've worked in government institutions. I've interacted with many different types of workloads. I have a passion for teaching people how to do things in the cloud. I have a passion for automation and how to make things more optimized. I also happen to work for AWS as a developer advocate, and I'm based in Berlin, Germany. If you want more of this, make sure to check out the social media links there. I do things on Twitch, I do things on YouTube, I tweet important things, so make sure to check it out. Oh yeah, also, I'm from Serbia, hence the weird spelling of my names. So yeah. Okay, let's talk. Let's talk Lightsail storage. So besides just the fact that you can host a website on Lightsail, make a database, do some domain stuff, and even load balance, you can actually do things with storage. And it can be a simple thing like your Lightsail instance, right? Your Lightsail server running on somewhere, and you attach a disk to it, right? So let's think of this as your disk attached to your Lightsail instance. And once that is here, right? So this is basically just a simple way of running where your operating system is. This is all of your persistent files. Every instance you launch must have a disk, right? You need an operating system to run from somewhere. And what's wonderful about these things is that even though, it's Lightsail, it's storage, you still know how much you get, and you still know how much it's going to cost. There's no additional cost to this. I mentioned $3.50, $3.50, right? So that's fine, right? Is that storage? Of course, every server has storage. Darko, this is nothing new. What is Lightsail storage? Tell me about it. Okay. Let's talk. Let's talk. Let's have a crash course in cloud storage. I actually have some nifty, props here to show. Yes, so let's actually talk about different types of cloud storage that is also available on Lightsail. To kick us off, let's talk about block storage. What is block storage? This is block storage. Well, it's actually sector storage, but a hard disk is block storage, right? Instead of writing, well, actually, what happens here is you have your server, right? And let's actually add some block storage to our server. So I'm going to plug in here, wait, the other one, there we go. I'm going to plug in here a floppy disk. What's happening now? My server, in this case, in order to access data on this thing, it actually needs to write and read blocks, right? Physical elements on the disk. The operating system here needs to know how to interact with this disk via means of file system. But in essence, it's attached to a single instance. Only this server here can read it. If I bring in another server, it cannot read this until I disattach this, well, or just do this and give it to another server, right? It's great. You mount it, you format it, and you use it. And this is just wonderful, right? If you look at if you look at use cases, this is your typical volumes, your disks, where you would attach them to an EC2 instance or a Lightsail instance in this case, right? And that's pretty simple. It's you attach a volume, and this volume is available to the specific instance right now. And the instance can have multiple of them. They can be up to 16 terabytes. You can attach up to 15 different instances. This volume, even if this instance goes away, the volume will still be available and attachable to a different instance, right? But what's wonderful about this thing here is it has snapshots, independent snapshots. And these things are wonderful. It helps keep your instances safe. In essence, it's not backup. It doesn't copy files anywhere. It doesn't access the file system. It actually takes the blocks of this volume, of this block device, and copies it somewhere. It copies the entire disk, right? It makes a snapshot of it. And what happens then, if something happens to your instance, you can basically restore this entire thing to a completely new system. And if you do that, if this is the OS drive on your Lightsail instance, it's gonna just basically create a new Lightsail instance with the same OS, with the same configuration, all of that things. It's wonderful, right? This basically means if your WordPress server goes down, you don't need to rebuild it, reconfigure it from scratch, even though it's easy on Lightsail. You can just restore a snapshot, and it's wonderful, right? So excellent. Okay, let's talk about file storage. So once we have our thing writing to our floppy drive or our block storage, you need to have a way to write to it, right? I mentioned the file system before, but basically that's it. When this thing, when your Lightsail instance has mounted a volume, right, to it, and it starts writing to these things. It actually needs to write through something called a file system. And what it does, it creates files, and it creates files in directories. And this basically just gives your operating system the ability to write to a thing. And with a file system, you can, kind of access it, read it, write it. You can also share it, among other things. Now, I can take this instance, attach a volume to it, share it with other instances in my Lightsail network. Or I can use something like Amazon EFS. Now, what is Amazon EFS? Let me actually play with more props. My Lightsail instance, right? I want to attach some storage to it. What is this? This is a network server. This is a file server sitting on the network. All of a sudden I decide, hey, I'm going to connect these things too. These two servers are now connected. These two things are connected. My Lightsail instance and something called EFS. EFS, or Elastic File System, is a service on top of AWS that basically gives you a POSIX compliant shared file system. It doesn't share blocks, so it doesn't share blocks of a disk. It actually shares the file system itself. In essence, a network file system. So your instance doesn't need to know how to write to this EFS's disk. It doesn't care. It doesn't access the blocks. It accesses the file system, and it should natively know how to write to a network file system, or NFS in this case. And EFS is wonderful. It's fully managed. You can just attach it to your Lightsail instance. It just works, right? And the thing is, you can attach that volume to multiple instances. That means if you have multiple servers, multiple VPSs, want to access the same place where you store your files, your configuration data, all of those things, you can do that. But only on Linux. Well, actually, there's a thing that exists. It's called Amazon FSx for Windows, which is in essence very similar, right? But in this case, it's just a file share for Windows. Think of it in the same way as EFS. Imagine these things running Windows, but instead of sharing an NFS file system, a Linux one, I can share an SMB mount, or basically it's built on Windows. You can get up to 64 terabytes of storage, and you can attach them to multiple different Lightsail instances running Windows. So wonderful. Again, if you're running a Windows workload on Lightsail, this is great. And the thing is, both EFS and FSx for Windows are native AWS services. You can use them both within Lightsail and somewhere else. So they're great, especially if you wish to plan to move on. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but they're all fully managed. You don't have to maintain Windows file servers. I used to do that a long time ago. You don't have to maintain Samba file shares. Nope, it's all managed for you. It's all set up, multi-AZ configuration, all of the bells and whistles that you need to have a secure and robust network file system, which can be attached to multiple Lightsail instances. And now, let's talk about something else. Let's talk about object storage. Going back to our two little things. So, our instance here, right? And this is our object storage. Well, you may know it more as a bucket, right? So Amazon S3 is object storage. But what does this mean? So instead of this Lightsail instance accessing data on S3 via the means of a file system, you access it as an object. You access it through API calls. When your instance wants to write to a network file system, it uses the native operating system file system, basically hooks and commands and queries and all those things to read and write from a file system, even though it's a network file system. When using object storage, it doesn't do that. It actually makes HTTP API calls saying, hey buddy, can you get me this file? Hey buddy, write this file. Hey, modify this file, etc., etc. And in essence, it's not a file system. It is a flat file storage. It uses basically a flat namespaces. Even though on S3 you will see things like folders and directories, they're in essence just prefixes, and it's all a same flat namespace. Wonderful. It's great. If you want to host all of your files, your media files, your images, your different things, your, I don't know, things you wish to be accessed from multiple different places, your customers, your instances, whatever, and you want to have a lot of them, object storage is just the way to go. Actually, this was launched recently. Amazon Lightsail Object Storage is just a simplified way to use S3 on top of Lightsail. So instead of creating your own S3 buckets and managing permissions and managing all of those things, which are not too difficult, but they can be confusing at times, especially your bucket policies, it is very simple to do this. It can just takes a couple of clicks to create object storage bucket on Lightsail, right? It's wonderful. And also it has these flat bundles, right? Just $1 a month for a specific amount of traffic. Wonderful. It helps keep your costs at bay. So how does it actually look like? The Lightsail storage trifecta. You have block storage, your EBS volumes or elastic block store volumes, your disks, which you can attach to single instances and be accessible from that instance. You have Amazon EFS and FSX for Windows, which is your network file systems accessible by your Lightsail instances through the power of network file systems. And there's also Lightsail Object Storage, which is basically an S3-backed object storage where your instances, your servers, your applications, your users access these files through an API call, usually an HTTP or HTTPS API call. So let's actually see how practically this will look like. Let's say you want to run a web server, a WordPress website, a blog. What happens if you wish to store pictures on it? Well, actually, you know what? Let's do a demo now. I'm gonna do a demo here because I need to move this, I need to do that. Perfect. This. Welcome to my Lightsail console. Let me do some thing here. I wanna have that and good. All right. I want to move this away so it doesn't cause us problems. Can I do pen? Yeah, I can. Perfect. All right. So you want to have your WordPress website on top of AWS. How do you do that? Welcome to the Lightsail console. So things you see here, if you go here, you will see that you have a couple of things to do here. Instances, containers, databases, networking, and storage, right? Right now, we're going to be focusing on the instances part, right? We're going to be launching a WordPress instance on Lightsail. As you can see, I have it already here, but it's a cooking show, so you know, things have to be like that. So let's go ahead. Let's create a new instance. Let's create a new WordPress instance. I'm going to be using Linux in this case, which is perfectly fine. And if you remember those blueprints, I'm going to set the WordPress 5.7.2 right now. Just doing that. Scroll all the way down. Here are your wonderful instance plans, basically $3.50 a month. First 3 months free. Wonderful. And you can also give your instance a name. Let's do it second one, because I have the first one already. Once that is done, create instance, boom. That's all it takes. It's right now launching another virtual server, another instance here that's going to be running WordPress. Wonderful. And I already have it prepared because I don't want you to wait on all of these things. So if you come here, you will see that, hello there, I have a WordPress blog, right? Simple as that. It's a hello world post. Nothing to write home about. But let's actually, what happens now if I go ahead and I go to create a new post, you know, like I'm going to do a new post, and I'm not a fan of this new editor from WordPress, but let's gonna call it demo post. So I want to add an image. If I click image here and I upload an image, what happens? Where does this image go? If you recall from the presentation, we had something called block storage, instance storage. When I upload an image from my laptop or from my workstation to this server, the image actually goes on the disk of that server. So it goes on the disk on this instance, which is both good and not so good. Why not so good? Well, you know, if you have a lot of content, if you keep on creating videos, images, all of those things, you keep on adding them here, what happens? What happens to that content? What happens to your storage, which you have 20 gigabytes of, right? It can be problematic if you do a lot of videos and images. 20 gigabytes doesn't get you long, right? Plus, count the operating system there. It's just not too much, right? How can we actually offload these things? How can we offload the images on this blog post or in this blog? How can we offload it to something else, right? There's a couple of ways. We can do things like EFS. We can do network file storage, right? Remember our NFS systems where we attach it and we can put it somewhere else on EFS. Yeah, that's fine. But even then, if your customer requests a web page and that picture is getting loaded, it goes through this to your customer. Which is okay, but we can do better. We can optimize a bit more. How about we store that image in object store, in S3, or in this case, Lightsail object storage. Let's actually go to storage. So what we will create here is a bucket, right? I talked about S3. It's basically an S3 bucket, nothing complex. So if we create a bucket here, this is where we're going to be storing our videos, our images, all of the things we want. So let's say I want to have 100 gigs of storage and I want to have 250 gigs of transfer for my data. Okay, I'm going to give my bucket a name. I'm going to keep it in this random name. I think that's okay. All that, it's going to cost me $3 a month for 100 gigs and 250 gigs of transfer. Create bucket. This bucket now is ready to be used. What I can do right now is from WordPress, instead of uploading an image onto the disk itself, I can upload the image to S3. How do you do that? Let's have a look here. So let's go to objects. One of the things you'll see here, there's nothing here. Your bucket is empty, which is fine, right? It's empty. There's nothing. We haven't written anything to it, and we won't just yet. But if we go to permissions, we need to first give permissions to, number one, read the files from this bucket, but also write to this bucket. So we will change the permissions of objects. We can do this like so. We will say that all objects are public and read-only. Now, this is important. This is something you need to take care of. For your customers to be able to read the files from your object storage, from your bucket, you need to enable this. They will not be able to write to it. They will just be able to read from it. Okay? Click Save. It says, oh, please make sure that confidential data, and please do make sure there's no confidential data in this bucket because you don't want that leaking out. And clicking Save. Excellent. Now, let's do one more thing. Let's attach an instance. We're going to attach the server to this object storage. Now, in essence, I'm not attaching anything. I'm just giving permission for this instance. I'll just go to the first one. I'm giving this instance permission to have access to this server. So it basically gives it write and read access to this bucket. So what's going to happen here, your instances can write to this bucket and they can also read from it. So if I go here and click on, that's it. That's all I have. Public access, right? So we've enabled public access, and also we need to enable, well, give the instance access to this bucket. Excellent. What now? Well, one of the things we need to do right now is basically connect WordPress to this bucket. We're going to use a native WordPress way of doing this. WordPress has this wonderful thing called plugins, which are both wonderful and horrible at the same time because they can be insecure. But there's a plugin called S3 Media Lite or something like that. It's called, let's find it. Yeah, okay. Offload or WordPress Offload Media Lite for Amazon S3. This plugin will actually offload all of the uploaded images and videos to S3, which is great. Let's actually install this one. This plugin has nothing to do with Lightsail, but this is a very easy way to use Lightsail object storage with WordPress. Click activate. Perfect. Now let's scroll all the way down. And here you have the settings. You go into the settings, and on the settings, you define how it will access your EC2 instance, or actually your storage. You can define your keys here, but you don't need to do that because it's running on Lightsail. Your WordPress instance and the bucket is running on top of Lightsail. So you need to select this one. My server is on Amazon Web Services and I would like to use IAM roles. You don't have to know anything about IAM roles in this case, but you can just select this and click on next. All right. First of all, we need to tell it which bucket to use in this case. I'm going to go here and just copy the name of this bucket here. You copy the name, you come back here, and you paste the name here. Boom. Now it knows which bucket to use. And one of the things you need to do here as well, because I don't think this is showing good, save bucket settings. Boom. Excellent. You want to make sure to force HTTPS. This thing is important, otherwise it will struggle writing files to your bucket, and you need to have HTTPS, right? Security and all that stuff. So make sure to select force HTTPS on this plugin here. So select that and save changes. Excellent. Let's go back here. Go to objects. As you can see, the bucket is empty. If I refresh it, it's still empty. There's no files here. But let's go back to the blog and let's go and create a new post. Let's do a new post here. Let's call it Zastava 101. This is my first car. And let's actually upload an image of that car. I should find it somewhere here. There we go. Boom. It's now uploading this image. But what's wonderful about this, it's not uploading it to the server's file system. It's not uploading to the block storage, to the disks of the file server. It's actually uploading it to S3. If I do save draft and I click on preview and open it here, you will see this image. But okay, what does that mean? Check this out. Open image in new tab. I'm not sure how good you can see here, but this link is an S3 link. So this link here is not going to my server, it's going straight to S3, which means that requests for this image or for any video I upload, right? Even if I do like a video, let's try a video here, why not? So I think there's a video thing, upload, I think there's one for me, why not? Upload this video and this image are going to be uploaded directly to S3. So it means any requests for this are going to avoid our servers, which in essence gives our server more processing power to do other things than process images and videos. Save draft, refresh, let me refresh it again. Boom, you can see all of this thing here. And this video is also on S3. And to verify this, if we refresh this right now, well, bam, WP content, ooh, uploads, ooh, year, month, and there's two folders here. You can see here, test Darko, that's the video file, and there's a bunch of different versions of the image. You can see there's different sizes here. You can, different resolutions. However, this is not the Lightsail thing. This is that WordPress plugin. That WordPress plugin automatically resizes your image. But again, it's not something that Lightsail does for you. And that's it. Basically, we have these files now accessible publicly. Even if I take this link here and open it like that, you will see that it is accessible publicly. Wonderful. And you can do this all through EC2. You can do it all through S3. Absolutely, you can. But it's so much more simpler to do it through Lightsail. With that, let's go back to PowerPoint. Is this it? Okay, cool. Now, let me turn this thing off. Close it like that. We don't need that. We need this. All right. Let's see what we've done. Basically, we've done this. We've connected your users from the internet to your WordPress Lightsail instance through S3, right? Instead of using files on system disk, it's actually using the files on object storage. You can, again, take it to a different place and do stuff like have EFS, have your network file systems, have your FSX Lostras here as well for your WordPress service. You can have multiple WordPress servers accessing the same file system where you store things. Or you can take it a step further, make it very, very scalable, and have object storage as well, right? So storing files both on the disk, on EFS, and on Lightsail. This is basically the best way you can expand your WordPress setups when it comes to storage on top of Lightsail. Okay, to summarize. There's different types of block storage on AWS, and Amazon Lightsail gives you the ability to use those in a very simple way. Number one, you can attach your physical block storage, your disks, your EBSs on top of your EC2 instance, sorry, your Lightsail instance. You can use network file systems, your, where are they? Your EFSs, your FSX Lustras for FSX for Windows. And also you can use object storage to store files directly on top of S3 through Lightsail object storage and have a very simple way to integrate all of those things with your Lightsail applications, your WordPresses, whatever you want in this case. And with that, thank you very much. I hope you really enjoyed this presentation. I hope you enjoyed my demos. I hope you enjoyed my prop play here. I planned it out. My name has been Darko. If you have any feedback, please feel free to reach out to me via the things there. I write stuff on a blog as well, so feel free to check it out. And once again, thank you very much for your time, and see you sometime soon. Bye-bye.